Hi, Mike.
Hi,
Good evening, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just got done watching a movie.
What'd you watch?
We watched How to Deal.
How to heal?
How to Deal.
How to deal?
Yeah,
What kind of movie is it?
kind of a teeny bopper movie. It had an actress named Mandy Moore in it.
Oh, yeah, I remember her.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It's about a girl who doesn't believe in love, and then at the end of the movie, she falls in love.
Tale as old as time.
Yep.
We're just gonna start. We're gonna start now, and I have my friend and student with me, Les. He's
I
here.
love.
Did you say hi?
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Good to hear.
Mike, what's best for you? Do you want us to share what we're reading, or do you have a copy of this yet?
Um, I don't have a copy of it yet. I need to get a copy of it. I need to order one from the library, but they're not. They call them zip books when you get the library to buy them for you.
If you
And
texted me your address, I'll mail you a copy.
oh, that would be great.
Yeah,
I'll do that. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mhm. That-
Is she going to be joining the meeting?
My little one.
Yeah. Hi, little one.
Say hi, Bodie.
Good job. Let's see. You ready? That's baby.
Okay, we'll start with. Sometimes we've been starting with a Nityananda invocation, so I'll have less. We'll have less read that. That's here on the screen. And Mike, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see this. Uh, let's see, and then I'll move this over. We'll do this. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll share that. Let's share this one. And then I can move it over right in front of you like that.
Oh, cool.
Did that work? Let's find out. Yeah, and then share. There we go. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I bow to Nityananda, whose essential form exists all the time, who dwells in all things, who illumines all things, and who has become absolute consciousness. He is himself light and has expanded outward in play. He is full of bliss. Being the grace bestowing power of the Supreme Lord, he is the guru to the disciple. As sunlight conquers darkness, his spontaneous nature overcomes for his disciples the impurity covered world of change. To fulfill the four basic goals of his devotees and to foster the inner and outer play of consciousness, he has assumed a body that houses the mystery of Shaktipat. He is without decay or destruction. He is the inner light and the goal of mantra. He is supreme consciousness itself. He is Gurudev Nityananda. I bow to him with the infinite feeling of surrender and in perfect eye consciousness. Having merged his individual existence in the self, Before the beginning of time, he effortlessly liberates by his grace. Since the sunrise of liberation brings the aim of outer joy and the peaceful bliss of the self, he has spontaneously become Muktananda, the bliss of freedom. He is Nityananda, the joyful exuberance of consciousness. He who is eternal bliss, full of truth and consciousness. He whose work it is to end the disciples' world of change. He who is the body of consciousness, a body sporting for the sake of devotees. Such a one is your Nityananda, O Muktananda.
Are Nityananda and Muktananda the same person?
No, but yes, because I believe the idea is that there's an unbroken chain in the lineage, but they were not the same people. They had different bodies at different times. So I would say Rudralanda, and then Muktananda before him, and then Swami Nityananda before them.
Okay, and they're all reincarnations?
No, they're not. They were alive at the same time in the same Swami. Well, I would say Muktananda was probably in the same Swami order. I know very little compared to what there is to know about Nityananda. And I know that Nityananda is a little bit more difficult to put into a box of like a particular discipline or order. And I'm finding that that's the case with a lot of these guys that were being found by Westerners in the 50s and 60s, because the records were just kept differently back then. There's a couple books that you might be interested in, but one would be a book called Spiritual Cannibalism. It's one of the core books to read in this lineage that I belong to. That, and a lot of people who study what Rudy brought to America with the help of Muktananda would be that book, Spiritual Cannibalism. And then there's another book called Light on the Path, which is short and an easier read. And we will also be, in coming chapters, very quickly be talking about this particular system's the workings of the relationship between initiation, the guru, and the disciple is coming up after we read about Shaktipat.
Something strange is happening with my phone. I'll try to reconnect again if I fall off.
Okay. How's my audio, Mike?
Sounds great.
Okay. Last time we were together, we read about the three malas, and so we'll just go straight into the next section, which starts with divine grace and individual effort. Would you like to read?
Sure.
Is Jack here?
No, Jackson in the air right now. He's flying back to California from Chicago.
Oh. Okay.
divine grace and individual effort through phenomenal existence. Though phenomenal existence is a manifestation of divine nature, it has also been transcended because it is a state of.
It has to be transcended. Do you want me to make it bigger?
Maybe move it down a little bit. If that's, I don't know if that's possible. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Excuse me. Though phenomenal existence is a manifestation of divine nature, it has to be transcended because it is a state of limitation or imperfection. 3 states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, which comprise the whole of phenomenal life, are painful and constitute the realm of toil and suffering. During these states, freedom is reduced to a subordinate position. Therefore, the state of liberation, which is the 4th state called Turiya, is highly sought after. When a person attains this state in which he experiences his essential nature, his suffering comes to an end.
So we have 4 states: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Those are 3 ordinary states. They comprise the whole of phenomenal life. And they're painful and constitute the realm of toil and suffering. But there's a 4th state, which is the state of liberation. They're calling it Turiya here. And then what happens when we experience that 4th state, or liberation, or Turiya, is that person experiences his essential nature. I'm not sure how they use what that means in terms of the definition of essential nature. Do you have any guesses, Mike?
That's just the question. It could be merging with the sun, or it could be becoming a sun ray.
Yeah, and you mean that in the terms of the primal, the big self with the big S.
Yes.
Rather than the little self with the little s.
Yes, exactly.
And I also think of it like possibly essential nature it just sounds like natural, because like in Dzogchen, in Tibetan Dzogchen, or from the Bun tradition, or from the Buddhist Dzogchen tradition, the state of liberation is they also talk about it as just your natural state. So it like poses this idea that, when we're identified with our personality, we're in this kind of fallen, darkened realm. And then when we're in the state of remembering union, that's our natural state.
Okay. Now that one I'm having a hard time understanding. Nature, natural state, natural state. So how was it termed before? How was it originally termed in this passages, Fred?
Essential nature. And his suffering comes to an end when we experience our essential nature.
So it could be natural state with a capital N, or natural state with a lowercase n.
Yeah, I understand too, because you have a lot of knowledge about philosophy. I'm doing a lot of catch up in that department. And I do know that nature is a big part of philosophical arguments. So I could see it being kind of sticky to start talking about things that way.
Yeah, it works though.
Yeah. Like when we're talking about idealism and idealistic philosophy in Neoplatonism and Platonic philosophy, nature is a very specific term.
Or is it just any state of oneness?
Yeah,
Because most people, if they're having these discussions that we're having, have experienced some kind of oneness.
I find that to be the case that there's probably not a lot of people who are reading about this that aren't incredibly curious to describe or understand something that had happened to them. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't mind you going there with it, with nature. Essential nature. Maybe if we read on, we'll figure it out.
Right. Okay. Keep on. Okay. Or do you have anything you want to ask or comment on?
Well, it just strikes me that it's referring to oneness.
Yeah.
No, other than a natural state, it doesn't have a lot of meaning to me. Just to say the essential nature, it can only mean oneness, awakening. So,
It can only mean oneness with or without a capital O.
Mhm.
It can only mean self with a capital or a lowercase s. And we have yet to find out which.
okay. Even though the process of self-concealment and self-revelation form a part of the divine nature.
The word was self-revelation.
It says essential self in the text. Does it spell self with an S, capital S or a lowercase s?
Where do you see essential self? I see essential nature, all lowercase.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even though the process.
That's just referring to us as Hellenic beings. Does everybody know what a holon is?
No, you've mentioned it before. Is it like it sounds like something like a tachyon particle or something.
I don't know what a tachyon particle is, but a holon is part matter and part spirit. So our essential self is spirit. And that's referring to ourselves as holons. But if it has nature lowercase, then I'm thinking it's referring to our spirits as lowercase.
It's certainly lowercase in this text. So
I couldn't be getting off track. I'd like to read more and see if we can figure it out that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll circle back to that.
even though the process of self-concealment and self-revelation form a part of the divine nature, bondage and liberation do not occur automatically or mechanically. The individual has to take the initiative to win his freedom. These functions of self-concealment and self-revelation operate only at the level of the absolute, whereas the will and thought of the individual function only at the lower level with the realm of creation. It is due to the Lord's free will that he ceasingly carries on his
Ceaselessly.
ceaselessly, thank you, It is due to the Lord's free will that he ceaselessly carries on his miraculous sport of limitation and freedom. It is due to his own free will that he first assumes the state of limitation through ignorance and then presumes perfection through then resumes perfection through knowledge. This is his nature, and thus he constantly passes from one condition to the other without losing his self-identity. At the lower level, or the realm of creation, however, the root cause of the individual's bondage or suffering is his ascription of agency or causality to himself. Once the individual realizes that it is not he, but is the absolute who is the real agent, he ceases to be responsible for good or evil. The individual is nevertheless responsible as long as he retains the sense of agency or doership. As long as he fails to realize his identity with the Supreme, he has to obey the laws of mortality. Although in reality there is no bondage, the individual is bound as long as he continues to feel limited. If he does not feel bound, he has no real problem. However, as long as he maintains a sense of ego and identity with the body, he remains in the realm of limitation and has to put forth self-effort to overcome his trials and sufferings. In fact, his suffering acts as the essential stimulus for spiritual awakening. An individual who enjoys the state of bondage and is unable to discriminate between limitation and freedom is very deeply bound.
Now, Trisha and I came across this paragraph yesterday, and we spent a lot of time on it because each sentence is like a sutra. There's an entire philosophy or religion right in this paragraph. So, first sentence. The root cause of the individual's bondage or suffering is his ascription of agency or causality to himself. So what mala does that correspond to? We just read about the malas in the previous page.
Separation.
So we've been going through page after page after page of the metaphysical from the absolute down to the human realm, and now we're going into the malas, and then now we're here talking about God has played hide and seek so effectively that these individual perspectives think that they're individuals. They're going through these dramas within Maya, and they're from if they have the perspective of playing the game of karma, and that we've talked about how God does this for the sport of it. Okay, and so it's the ultimate magic show. And so what is the mala that's associated with assigning agency to myself?
Yeah, separation.
I was thinking doership.
Okay.
That's a good point. I don't know. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's all three malas. I was thinking doership. Like I'm the one doing this.
Yeah, okay.
Because I have agency.
I'm having a hard time following. I don't have anything profound to say, but I'm having a hard time following. Because he's saying all agency is ego in the negative sense, and
it feels like what he's saying is that we can do one or the other. We can attribute agency I can attribute agency to myself, and I can experience an individual bondage and suffering by doing that. Or I can realize that I'm not the agent, it's actually Shiva's the agent.
Yeah. Hmm.
So the next part says that once the individual realizes that it's not the agent, but the absolute who's the real agent, this is an interesting part. He ceases to be responsible for good or evil.
That's a hard one.
In other words, how could I be a karmic being if I'm in realization that I am the absolute?
Yeah.
Definitely.
But then he's talking about self with an uppercase S.
Yes.
And he's bypassing all the other types of oneness you can experience.
Yes. Yeah, because that's an interesting way of putting that.
That is an interesting part. I could read some of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, tell me are we at the top of a paragraph?
No, I'm going to move it to the top of the page. So we're here. See where I'm highlighting?
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Okay. Self-realization simply means to become aware of the powers of the self. There it is with an uppercase S. As previously stated, these powers are obscured by ignorance. It's blind. If a blind person visited, I'm sorry, the print's not big enough.
Let's see if I can make it bigger. So we're
There
right
it is.
here. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. All right. If a blind person visited a treasury full of jewels, he would want to recognize them because of his blindness. Similarly, the individual who is blind to the true nature of self cannot realize it. Final release or liberation consists of the realization of absolute freedom or perfection. The attainment of freedom is possible only when one transcends the realm of Maya. Liberation is the recognition of one's own true nature, the original innate pure I consciousness. When an individual has this awareness, he knows his real nature and attains the bliss of the universal consciousness or Shiva's consciousness. The highest form of bliss, according to the Kashmir Shaivism, is Jagad Ananda or Lokananda, the bliss of the world, in which the whole world appears to be liberated soul as the embodiment of Shiva. He who has realized his identity with the universe and knows that all manifest creation is simply his own glory in the highest level, even when the process of cognition is still occurring, the liberated being considers himself identical with the self. which is the origin of all beings. Accordingly, he knows that he and all other beings in the universe share the same objects of perception and cognition. He also experiences that all objects are a part of his own self, which is the self of all. He feels that all objects are not different either from one another or from the subject. Thus, all the objects in his consciousness merge into undiluted unity, whereas the ignorant person experiences only diversity. My phone's acting up. Somebody else should read.
Okay. Shaktipat. Unless the highest Shakti descends upon an individual in the form of grace, a process known as Shaktipat, he does not directly experience the all-pervasiveness of the self, the capital S. Divine grace is the fifth and last function of the supreme power. The other four being creation, sustenance, dissolution, and concealment. Grace leads to the attainment of final release or liberation. Perfect freedom is attained only through grace. The essential nature of grace is fully revealed only in liberation. Its miraculous nature is due to the operation of the supreme creative power, which brings about the seemingly impossible. Now, I've heard of creator, sustainer, and destroyer many times. And here I'm hearing about two other things. I'm hearing about concealment. So we have Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, right?
Yes.
But then there's the aspect of concealment, which is this game that we're talking about. This game of the individual in Maya.
And then there's grace.
And then there's grace is the fifth one. So it's like grace. It's like grace and concealment are like part of the same tunnel. Just one's going one direction and the other's going the other direction.
Yeah.
Or they're tantric polarities.
I can read more now. I was just having trouble getting my I'm working on my phone and I was having a hard time getting it to go vertical instead of horizontal.
Sure thing. What you got, Les?
Because I'm new to this, I started reading the introductory material. It seems to say without question that for divine grace to take place, a guru is required.
Yep, it talks about that in the in the letter at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then also if we turn the page past Shaktipat, go a couple pages, and we sneak a peek. I'm going to scroll, Mike, so you can see what I'm talking about. If we go a couple pages ahead, what the titles of these sections are called are initiation and guru. So we'll probably get into the nuts and bolts of what that is. Yeah. So let's get back to Shaktipat. And so we're here. Mike, are you able to see where I'm highlighting?
Yes.
That's where we are.
Okay, you want me to read?
Yep.
The first requisites.
Now, divine grace or Shaktipat.
Divine grace or Shaktipat leads the individual to the path of spiritual realization. It is the only cause of self-realization and is independent of human effort. Without it, self-effort on the part of the individual cannot lead anywhere. Divine grace is operative everywhere and at all times. The desire for God which arises.
Will you go up the screen? What?
Well, oh,
Where are we?
I bumped my mouse. I'm sorry.
I think we're right here.
We're right here.
That's right. All right. Divine grace is operative everywhere and at all times. The desire for God, which arises in the individual's heart, presupposes the operation of grace. It is absolutely undetermined and unconditioned. It is the causeless cause of the soul's release. Okay. Oh. The first requisites necessary to obtain the Lord's grace are the annihilation of the ego personality, dedication of thought, speech, and action to Him, and taking refuge in Him. The divine consciousness descends, and the individual soul dwells in blissful freedom. It is also possible to approach the Lord by withdrawing the mind from the sense objects and concentrating upon Him, thus attaining communion, grace,
Communion with him.
With Him through the process of self-reflection and meditation. According to Shaivism, Shiva bestows grace through the Guru on each soul according to his respective capacity, which is based on individual purification, true knowledge, and devotion.
So this is the first time we got into technique.
What are you talking about, Dominic?
Well,
Where's the technique yet?
it says it is also possible to approach the Lord by withdrawing the mind from the sense objects and concentrating upon Him, thus attaining communion with Him through the process of self-reflection and meditation. So it's describing a yoga.
Yeah.
Leading to grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's saying that there's something we can do. First, it says it just happens if if our ego personality is annihilated. So that could be like stumbling across a mushroom in the jungle. You don't know it, and you just eat that, and then you annihilate your ego enough, and you might have some grace happen. Or something happens to you, and you like just are so shocked and ashamed at your own behavior. You know, God gives you what they call a moment of clarity or something like that, where you can see yourself, and it's just so humbling. Maybe some grace can trickle in that way. I would think that it just can happen so many different ways, but they're saying it's basically two ways. It's ego suppression,
Mhm.
and then they say you also can do it through a yoga. That's my take. Does anybody feel like that's what he's saying?
Seems to me it's saying that. Annihilation of the ego.
taking refuge and joining like a dharmic school or a school of consciousness where you have to
He says,
practice effacement to a teacher,
Yeah.
or do that type of work where you're in samaya with a teacher and you're serving a teacher. It's a very humbling thing, and you're basically saying for a period of time until I'm done cooking, I don't really have a life of my own. I pledge my body, speech, and mind to this dharma teacher until I'm done. And that's definitely an ego annihilating experience.
yeah. Yeah, because he says it all in one breath there at the top of the paragraph. The first three requisites necessary to obtain the Lord's grace are the annihilation of the ego personality, and then dedication of thought, speech, and action to him, and
So
taking refuge in him.
yeah, so I bring it up because these people who we're talking about, Nityananda, Muktananda, and Rudrananda, they did that. They were not their own. They didn't have sovereignty over themselves for periods of time. They were devotees in a lineage of these siddhas, and for long periods of time. Yeah.
I appreciate this sense through the process of self-reflection and meditation. There's help for someone like me.
Yeah, and it's best is I think also it's possible to argue or to make the point that it's a good idea to do both of these at the same time.
Yeah. Somehow that makes sense when it comes to Kashmir Shaivism.
Yeah.
Okay, so was I at the top of the paragraph of the next paragraph?
Yeah, here we're at Abhinavagupta, which you probably heard a lot about him.
Actually, no, I haven't. I don't think I've ever heard of him before.
Oh, well, a lot of the things related to the Shivasutras were written down by Abhinavagupta. So
Okay, how much of them were written down by him?
let's get clear on this. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick Google search for him so we can all get on the same page as who this guy was. So this is what he looked like, apparently. Let's go to Wikipedia. And let's see. He lived in 950 to 1060 Common Era, was a philosopher, mystic, and aesthetician from Kashmir. He was also considered an influential musician, poet, dramatist, exegete, theologian, and logician, a polymathic personality who exercised strong influences on Indian culture. Abhinavagupta was born in a something Brahmin family of scholars and mystics whose ancestors immigrated from Kannauj on invitation by the great king of Kashmir. He studied all the schools of philosophy and art of his time and under the guidance of as many as 15 or more teachers and gurus. In his long life, he completed over 35 works, the largest and most famous of which is the Tantra Loka, an encyclopedic treatise on the philosophical and practical aspects of Kaula and Trika, known today as Kashmir Shaivism. Another one of his very important contributions was in the field of philosophy and aesthetics with his famous Abhinava Bharati commentary of Natyasatra of Bharata Muni. My understanding about him was the Kashmiri Shaivism was largely codified by him. He's a fascinating guy. I want to see where it talks about his works. So here's his works. He wrote the Tantra Loka, which is a synthesis of the entire Trika system. Another important text was the commentary on Paratrisika, detailing the significance of the phonematic energies and their two sequential ordering systems. So that's telling me that that's a book about mantra. And then he has another work that he's famous for called the Tantra Sara, or the Essence of Tantra. He did commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, and on and on and on and on. He wrote devotional hymns and philosophical works. So interesting guy to probably study.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the Shiva Sutras did he write?
No, I'm not saying that he wrote the Shiva Sutras. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are texts related to the Shiva Sutras that Abhinavagupta is known to have authored.
Oh, okay.
I'm not recalling who wrote the Shiva Sutras. Do you know who wrote them originally?
No, I don't.
I'd like to know. Let's see. Vasagupta. It says the Shiva Sutras of Vasagupta.
Okay.
They're attributed to the sage Vasagupta from the 9th century. Good moment. That's about it.
Where do you live, Mike?
I'm living in Riverside nowadays.
Okay.
But I lived in Idlewild for a total of, like, let's see, for a total of about 15 years.
So that's why you know Nanak.
No,
No. Okay.
we've never met in person.
Okay.
I mean, he knows Trisha, but Trisha and him are good friends, so she turned him on to this idea. Not yet. We haven't met yet in person. I'd like to get through this page. Is that okay? Can we continue? You guys waiting for me?
Yeah. Shall I read?
Sure.
Abhinavagupta has declared in this Tantra Loka that there are innumerable finite selves in the universe, and the experiences of these finite selves are different from one another. Their powers are limited by the 5 kanchukas or sheaths and conditioned by the subtle body, which consists of 5 tanmatras and 3 karanas. Furthermore, they are subject to the merits of their actions, coupled with the residual traces, samkaras, of past actions. The nature of the individual consciousness, thus formulated, inspires and influences the thoughts and actions of the finite self. With this background, the individual is awakened to spiritual knowledge and yearns for release from bondage. Even such awakening and aspiration are impossible without the grace of the Lord. Anybody may obtain divine grace provided that he is able to do so, and his capacity depends on personal effort. This in turn depends on the performance of ordained actions or karma, which is of two varieties. One kind of karma consists of performing good actions in order to obtain happiness in this world as well as in the next, whereas the other kind of karma consists of spiritual practices such as yoga, japa, and dhyana. Is the same for Paramashiva that confers grace in both cases. In the first case, the bestowal of grace is dependent upon the individual's actions for the removal of the malas or impurities. As in the second case, it is dependent upon the cultivation of creative and intuitive faculties by means of spiritual practices.
So there's innumerable finite selves in the universe.
What does that mean?
Selves with a little s.
Well, so you and me and
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a
right.
there's a bunch of us scattered throughout the universe.
Yeah.
And our powers are limited by 5 of these things called kanchukas or sheaths. See, malas are lies, kanchukas are sheaths, or I've heard them called cloaks before. So, does anybody know what the 5 kanchukas are?
I don't have them memorized, but I can come up with them. Sort of. I can't.
Let's hear it.
I can't. I need. I don't know.
I don't have enough time,
And I don't have enough
and
space.
I don't have enough space. Those are the 5. So they're corresponding to the 5 kanchukas. Those are the human expressions of them.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
There's going to be a Sanskrit name that we'll learn. Sure, here it's that corresponded, and they were in that document that you have. The Sanskrit names. I think one's Kala.
Yeah.
So on and so forth.
Yeah.
I think we might have read about this in this book as well. So there's these 5 ways which we are limiting our powers, and it's also saying here that we're all different. We all have different genetics. We have different, positive and merits. We have different karma, and then it also says we have these things called residual traces of past actions. They call them samskaras. So I'm curious what other ways of calling, what other terms could be used to talk about residual traces. I feel like there are conditionings or our traumas maybe could be like ways we're conditioned or programmed with scripts and stories that we believe in, we're identified with. And some of them could be beneficial to us. Some of them could be really not serving us. They've brought up some scaras in this text a lot, and they haven't quite gone there yet with what it is that we need, that we do with them, or what can be done about them.
Schedule traces of past actions.
Yeah.
Still affecting us.
So with this background, so it's the individual consciousness thus formulated inspires and influence the thoughts and actions of the finding itself. With this background, the individual is awakened to spiritual knowledge and yearns for release from bondage. Even such awakening and aspiration are impossible without the grace of the Lord. So even if I wake up to my predicament and I start to feel like I'm stuck and I don't know how to be unstuck, and then somehow I get confronted with the possibility of awakening through something spiritual, even if I get all the information and I find the right teaching and I get the right, and I do the practices correctly, nothing happens without grace, is what I'm hearing from this.
Well, they give a full prescription for enlightenment, for attunement to the self with a capital S, because they talk about creation, preservation, destruction, concealment, and grace.
Yeah.
And that works no matter where you are in the universe.
I love that. Yeah.
That's the Shivasutras for you.
Yeah. Could you say that again? It was a little quiet.
Well, they give a full prescription for attunement to the self with a capital S, and that they say, that you have to have creation, preservation, destruction, concealment, and grace in order to merge with the self. Could you hear me better that time?
Yeah. 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 And then in this last paragraph, it talks about the two things to do. One would be to get your karma in order, and the other would be to study I guess they're talking about two kinds of karma. One is the karma of good and bad, and the other is because karma also means work. So the karma or the work of spiritual practices such as yoga, japa, and dhyana. I'm going to look up dhyana in my yoga.
Does karma ever mean action? Because that's what I heard.
Yeah, that too. I've frequently heard it called action, but a kriya also is frequently used as the word for action as well.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to look up dhyana. Do you know what that word means?
Dhyana, no.
Yeah. So dhyana yoga is a yoga of meditation. Japa, I think, is the recitation of God's name, usually.
Okay.
So dhyana means meditation or contemplation. And I'm going to look up, and then there's several pages on it in this book. I'm not going to read it all. And then I'm going to look up japa. Jap in Gurmukhi in the Sikh tradition just also means meditate. But jap ji is the recitation of the word. So these things, that's why it's so important to know what culture you're reading from, and because the words are
Different meanings.
gives them different meanings, and Sanskrit's a proto language, so it's gonna be all over the place. Japa, recitation. So that's reciting mantras according to rules, and reciting sutras and so on and so forth.
Used it already.
Okay. Do you guys feel complete?
I'm good. Sure.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I feel good.
Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, likewise.
Nice to meet you, Mike.
Nice to meet you.
Have a great night.
You too.